even that, the business head there said, the guy who owned contract management, said this is unheard of even in our company. We've never signed a vendor without actually meeting the vendor before. And we got it all sealed done, the deal done, and our implementation team landed up 2 weeks ago to kick off. So that's been quite incredible. And these are enterprise deals, right? These are not small deals. These are 5-figure deals. So it was definitely.
After hearing this, Bihar, next time you have to have a full day session, right, on driving sales and marketing, right, and invite in the Icertis team into it, right? It really seemed to make fantastic sense. So, no, I think this is amazing, and I think it's a great message to all of you all in terms of how much do you have to invest, not just on focusing on your product, but also building a very, very strong sales and marketing engine. Because if you don't do that, all the other effort that you're going to do is going to go waste. And these are some fantastic examples that you are really hearing out here.
And I've seen so many people, including some of my close friends, who have gone down that path and not invested in sales, and so it's in my opinion, you take up any business. Building a lifestyle business is very easy, right? I've done that before. Come to a comfort zone. You have a nice car, you have a nice, you go on vacation once a year, and it's not difficult to build. But going to the next level is what is critical, right? What typically people achieve, kind of aspire for and want to achieve, and so on and so forth. I think that needs that, that thump at the back, and that cannot come without a good sales engine cranking up for you.
Now that we have touched, the lifestyle business you spoke about, as well as you spoke about blade logic to a certain extent, I'm sure the audience would love to hear about the successes that you had with your previous companies. So can you share with us what has been your involvements on your previous companies, and where did it that you really took them from and to before you were out of the picture?
Absolutely. Love to talk about it, and as you probably noticed, I love to talk, so you're not imposing.
Well, it's a my story session anyway, so
there you go. So when I came back from the US, I worked in a company called ARAI, Automotive Research Association of India. Two things: I did my master's in mechanical engineering. Halfway through my PhD, I decided, I didn't want to complete my PhD. I was about 20 credits away from my PhD, and I said, this is getting to be boring. So I came back and I joined the area. It was happenstance, kind of one of those things where I went to meet someone in the area. He said, what, Monish, what are you doing? Why have you come to meet me? And I said, hey, I came with my friend. The guy said, I'm a PhD from Princeton. We are doing some basic engine research here, really good research, flame propagation. Your mechanical engineering, all your thesis work actually falls right in line. Why don't you join us? I said, yeah, fine. I have nothing better to do. I was in a sabbatical after like 3.5 years of, 3 years of study, an intense study at that. So I said, great idea. I joined, and it actually, made me learn a lot, because that is where I built my first product. We built a data acquisition system, which at that time was a import substitute, and we did very good business at that time in the area. So that was like a 2-year stint, and then one of my friends who I went to school with in the US came back after having spent some time in the US and said, Monish, hey, let's start on something on our own. And as with most of my decisions, I just said yes, why not? 2 months later, I was out of ARI, and we sit into this small office, which is about 100 square feet, which is his dad's, my co-founder's dad's, and we're looking at each other and saying, what next? So that was the amount of planning I did with my first venture, right? And that was web systems, which finally went on to become web sim technologies. So we started with consulting. We did some training and we were still kids. I think Indians grow up very slowly compared to Americans and Europeans, right? So we were still kids at that time. Late bloomers, there you go. So we did that, and then at some point we said, hey, this is getting to be a lifestyle business. So we switched gears, we raised some money, we hired some salespeople in the US, started selling aggressively, still services. And so WebSim was the company that we started at that time. Then Then, we kind of changed the model in WebSim. We did some build, operate transfers. We got a lot of startups. Somehow, most of them from the East Coast in the US. Got some startups, incubated them, gave them the right kind of environment, helped them set up the offices here, and then transferred. One of them happened to be Storability. And Storability, again, the CTO was a close friend, and he said, Monish, why don't you actually take up some of this responsibility? We're just 20 people in the US, and we want to grow. We're getting a lot of funding, and why don't you take that? I took that offer. We set up the India R&D of Storability, and before I knew it, in a year and a half, we were about 100 people. So that was quick ramp up. Very interesting work, all related to enterprise storage. So that was my first company from a incubation perspective, right? And of course, product development, right? So Storability actually was very interesting from another factor. They switched business models in the middle. They were a managed storage services company, and for a small company to actually go to enterprises and say, hey, we will manage all of your storage remotely, sitting in a small town near Boston, was very, very tough. So I went through that transition of actually changing focus of a company completely, moving all your people from one direction to completely different, being a software development company. I went through that kind of transition. And then we started building products on storage. We sold Storability to a company called Storage Tech, which was in Colorado, which was the largest manufacturer of tape libraries. You remember those backup tapes? They built those monstrous tape libraries. So it was a good kind of combination. We had the software to manage the storage, and they had all the hardware to manage the storage. That lasted for 7, 8, 9 months, something like that, and Sun Microsystems took over Storage Tech. So I went through 2 acquisitions on the trot, right, with the full 9 yards. The valuation discussions, the due diligence, kind of having to deal with, the business side of things as well as the technology side of things. So those 2 acquisitions actually happened in quick succession. After the Sun acquisition, I got very antsy because, Sun was an organization.
And believe me, this is a recurring theme that you'll find in Monish's life actually.
Antsy?
And when we were discussing about it, right, it's this, people have the 7-year itch, right, in their married life. In terms of his professional life, he has this frequent change itch. And if you look at it in his history, right, till what he's spoken till now, the first one was when he quit ARAI to start off something on his own. The second one was when he quit the lifestyle business of WebSim. Not necessarily quit, but okay, focused on something else. Because he really said, hey, this is not really challenging for me. And that's what he started the next one. And now we have come to the third juncture of him really getting, hey, I've done enough of this, let's move on to something else.
Yeah. And that is how, the CTO of BladeLogic actually reached out to me and said, Monish, I know how you're feeling, because we used to kind of talk about it. And it was interesting, BladeLogic, both the CEO and the CTO, both were Indian origin. Actually, the CTO was from Pune, from COAP, Vijay Manmani. And there was another guy who actually had lived, grown up in the US, but still Indian origin. And both of them had gone on record in the New York Times saying India is bad for outsourcing. So it was interesting when Vijay called me up and said, Monish, are you interested? And I said, are you really serious? I know what your thoughts are about this. And he said, no, we really want to do this because now our VCs are pushing us. So that was interesting. And that is when I kind of decided that, hey, I love VCs, I love money, but I would like to stretch that out as much as possible before I go to them. But it was an interesting conversation at that time. And that's how BladeLogic happened. So we set up the BladeLogic India R&D facility, I think somewhere in 2005 or 2004, so roughly around that. And that was an incredible ride. So we actually ended up growing, which is not surprising. But also growing from a perspective of how we actually got a business model which was very interesting, which was actually, if you look at how we are today in Icertis, we're very similar. We were competing with the HPs of the world. We're competing with all the big giants, enterprise software, and our key differentiators, of course, were the sales force, The guy